I never thought I'd be standing in my wedding dress, smiling for the cameras, while my entire family chose to celebrate somewhere else. The moment I cut into the cake with my husband, the guests around us clapped and cheered, but inside, I felt hollow. That's when my phone buzzed against my hip. 36 missed calls. A frantic text from my mother. "We need to talk now." What could possibly have been so urgent on the night of my wedding, the night they didn't even bother to show up for? Sit back, relax, and stay with me until the very end of this story. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 28 years old, and this is the story of how my sister nearly destroyed my wedding day, how my parents believed her lies, and how one shocking truth unraveled everything I thought I knew about my family. From the outside, we looked like a picture-perfect family in suburban Ohio, but behind the matching Christmas sweaters and smiling photographs, there was always a darker story. My younger sister, Lily, had been the golden child from the moment she was born. She sparkled on stage, danced ballet, played violin, and charmed every adult who met her. And me? I was the forgotten one, the invisible child clutching my science fair ribbons, while my parents toasted Lily's third-place dance trophy with champagne. By the time I was in college, I'd accepted that I didn't really have a place in my family. I stopped trying to make them proud, because I knew whatever I did, it would never compare to Lily's spotlight. I built my own life instead. I found friends who valued me, and eventually, I found Michael, the man who would become my husband. For the first time, I thought I had escaped the shadow of favoritism and finally learned what it meant to be loved unconditionally. But just when I believed my family couldn't hurt me anymore, Lily found a way to prove me wrong. Because 2 weeks before my wedding, my sister announced her engagement on social media, and the celebration she planned for it, it fell on the exact same day as my wedding. My parents didn't just allow it. They asked me if I could reschedule my ceremony for her engagement party. That was the moment I realized the depth of betrayal, but it was only the beginning. The full truth, the shocking deception Lily had carried out, wouldn't come to light until the very night I said my vows. And when it did, it left me questioning not only my family, but myself. Before I take you deeper into the tangled web of lies, I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt like the people who were supposed to love you the most turned their backs on you at the exact moment you needed them? Let me know in the comments, because I promise you, you're not alone. If you enjoy stories about family, betrayal, and the hidden dramas that shape our lives, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share your own experiences below. What really happened on my wedding day, and how my family's darkest secret came to light, is something I never could have imagined. Let me take you back to where it all began. I grew up in a quiet suburb outside of Cleveland, Ohio, in a neighborhood where every lawn seemed perfectly trimmed, and every family looked perfectly happy from the outside. To strangers, we looked the same, a family of 4, who wore matching sweaters for Christmas photos, and took sunny vacations to Myrtle Beach each summer. People used to say things like, "The Carters are the kind of family everyone wishes they had." But behind our closed doors, I lived in a world where love and attention were a currency, and I was always broke. From the very beginning, my younger sister Lily shined like a star. She was born with golden curls, dimples that seemed painted on, and a laugh that could melt any adult's heart. When she was 3 years old, she was already in ballet classes, spinning around in pink tutus while my parents clapped until their hands turned red. By the time she picked up the violin in 2nd grade, my parents had already crowned her their little prodigy. It wasn't that I wanted her talents or even her spotlight. I wanted something far more basic: acknowledgement. I remember one evening vividly. I was in high school, and I'd just received a letter of acceptance into an advanced science program. I ran home clutching the envelope, my heart pounding with excitement, because finally, I thought I'd have a moment worth celebrating. My mom was sitting on the floor with Lily, pinning sequins onto a new dance costume. I blurted out, "Mom, I got accepted into the advanced program." She didn't even look up at me. "That's nice, honey," she said absently. Put it on the counter so your father can see it later." Her words cut sharper than she realized. I stood there holding the letter, heat rising in my face, waiting for some hug, some sign of pride. But it never came. A few days later, when Lily won third place, not even first in a small local dance competition, our parents took us all out to a fancy dinner. They ordered champagne for themselves, raised their glasses high, and toasted our little star. I sat there quietly, pushing pasta around my plate, wondering why her third place meant a celebration, while my acceptance into a competitive program barely earned a glance. That wasn't a one-time thing. It was the pattern of my entire childhood. When I brought home straight A's, it was brushed aside with a distracted, "good job." But when Lily managed a B+ in a subject she usually failed, it was praised like a miracle. When I won regional awards in math and science, they barely made it onto the fridge, but Lily's recital flyers were laminated and framed on the wall. The cruelest blow came during my high school graduation. I had worked tirelessly, graduated at the top of my class, and was scheduled to deliver a speech. I saved 3 seats in the front row for my mom, my dad, and Lily. The morning of the ceremony, my mom called with a casual tone that nearly brought me to my knees. "Sweetheart, we won't be able to make it. Lily has an important recital, and the timing just doesn't work. You understand, right? This is really big for her future." Understand? I was standing there in my cap and gown, hearing my own mother tell me that my once-in-a-lifetime milestone wasn't worth rearranging a schedule for. I did what I always did. I smiled, pretended to be fine, and carried that ache into the auditorium, where I looked out into the crowd and saw an empty row where my family should have been. I gave my speech anyway, my voice steady, but inside I was unraveling. That night, while my classmates went out to celebrate with their families, I sat alone in my room staring at the honors cords draped around my neck. I told myself it didn't matter, that maybe this was just how my family loved. But deep down, I felt something breaking. I was the daughter who achieved without applause, the one who fought to be seen but never was. By the time I left for college, I had stopped trying. I didn't call home as often, because I knew every conversation would circle back to Lily, her auditions, her shows, her endless string of triumphs, no matter how small. I built a life where I no longer depended on my parents' approval, because their attention was a prize I would never win. But here's the thing. No matter how much you try to bury that kind of hurt, it doesn't disappear. It sits quietly, waiting, until one day it bursts out in ways you never expect. For me, that day came years later, when I stood in a wedding dress, waiting for my family to walk through the door, and realizing they wouldn't. And if you think the favoritism was bad when we were kids, just wait until you hear what happened when I announced my engagement. That's when Lily's jealousy went from subtle to ruthless, and my parents proved just how far they were willing to go to keep her at the center of our world. When I finally left Cleveland and stepped onto the campus of Boston University, it felt like I had been given permission to breathe for the first time in my life. For 18 years, I had lived in the shadow of my sister, in a house where my achievements barely registered, and now I was in a city where nobody knew me as Lily Carter's older sister. Here, I was simply Emily, and for once, that was enough. Boston was alive in a way my quiet neighborhood back home never was. The streets buzzed with people. The subway screeched underneath the ground, and I was surrounded by students who were just as hungry for knowledge as I was. I threw myself into my classes in biomedical engineering. It wasn't easy, my schedule was grueling, the workload crushing, but I thrived on it. Every paper I wrote, every lab I aced, felt like building a foundation of my own identity, one brick at a time, far away from the comparisons that had haunted me all my life. But building a new life wasn't just about academics. It was about finding people who saw me, who valued me. During freshman orientation, I met Rachel Moore. She was a psychology major, with a knack for reading people's emotions almost instantly. While most students made small talk about majors and dorm assignments, Rachel leaned across the cafeteria table one night and said, You've been carrying something heavy for a long time, haven't you? Her words startled me. I laughed it off at first, but she just smiled knowingly. By the end of that week, we were inseparable. Rachel became the sister I never had, the one who showed up for me when my parents forgot to call on my birthday, the one who held my hand when I cried after yet another holiday season where Lily was the only one celebrated. Living with her later, after graduation, would feel more like family than anything I'd ever known at home. College became a place of quiet victories for me. I started collecting awards, scholarships, recognitions in my field. My professors pushed me toward research, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly seen not by my parents, but by people who valued intelligence, discipline, and curiosity. Still, every achievement carried a small sting when I thought about how little it would mean to my family. I remember calling home after winning a scholarship and hearing my mother's distracted voice. "That's wonderful, honey. Did I tell you Lily has a solo coming up in her recital?" It hurt, but I learned to lower my expectations. If my family wouldn't celebrate me, I'd surround myself with people who did. After graduation, Rachel and I found an apartment in Boston together. It was small, with creaky floors and a leaky faucet, but it was ours. We decorated with thrift store finds, shared late-night takeout, and talked about everything: her studies in psychology, my lab work, our dreams for the future. She witnessed firsthand the cracks in my relationship with my parents. She was there on nights I sat crying on our couch after unanswered phone calls, reminding me that blood doesn't define family, actions do. 2 years after graduation, at a mutual friend's birthday party, I met Michael Reed. I hadn't been looking for love. Honestly, I had built such a fortress around myself that I wasn't sure I was capable of letting anyone in. But Michael had this warmth about him. He was tall, with kind brown eyes that seemed to really see me, not just the version of me I presented to the world. When he laughed, it was the kind of sound that made you feel lighter, as if everything was going to be okay. On our third date, sitting across from him at a quiet Italian restaurant, I found myself spilling everything about my family. I told him about Lily, about the missed graduations, about the way my parents never seemed to notice me unless it was in comparison to her. Normally, when I told people this story, they shifted uncomfortably, offered pity, or tried to change the subject. But Michael didn't flinch. He reached across the table, took my hand and said, "Emily, that's not normal, and it's not okay. You deserve better from the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally." His words hit me like a lightning strike. For years, I had wondered if I was simply too sensitive, too selfish, too needy. But here was someone telling me the truth. I had always known deep down that my pain was real, and it wasn't my fault. As our relationship grew, Michael encouraged me to set boundaries with my family. "You can't change them," he told me gently, "but you can change how you respond to them." It was hard advice to hear, but it was the push I needed. At his suggestion, I started therapy. Dr. Winters, my therapist, gave me language for what I had lived through: emotional neglect. She taught me about radical acceptance, the idea of lowering my expectations to match reality instead of clinging to the fantasy that my parents would one day become the parents I needed them to be. It wasn't an easy process. Some nights I cried after therapy sessions, grieving the childhood I never truly had. But over time, I started to feel lighter. By releasing the need for their approval, I gave myself permission to stop chasing it. I began to build a life not around their validation, but around my own happiness. Michael and his family became a lifeline during this period. From the very first time I visited their home in Connecticut, they embraced me as one of their own. His mother, Linda, called me regularly just to chat about my week. His father, Robert, would email me articles about breakthroughs in biomedical research, thoughtful comments scribbled in the margins. His sister Olivia invited me on shopping trips, laughed with me over coffee, and became the sibling bond I had always longed for but never found in Lily. "I'll never forget something Linda told me during my second visit. You're part of our family now. And in this family, we celebrate everyone's victories, big and small." I had to excuse myself to the bathroom that night because the simple kindness brought me to tears. It felt foreign, almost alien, to be included, to be valued. Michael found me there, tears running down my face, and wrapped me in his arms, without a word. He understood what those tears meant. With therapy, with Michael, and with the support of his family, I started to heal. I made a promise to myself. I would stop measuring my worth by my parents' inability to see it. I would create happiness on my own terms, and if I ever had children, I would break the cycle of favoritism and neglect. But I had no idea how much that promise would be tested. Because when Michael and I got engaged, the cracks in my family's facade widened into fractures, and Lily's jealousy shifted into something far darker. The shadows of my childhood were about to collide with my future in ways I never could have predicted. Michael's proposal was nothing short of a dream. It happened on our 2-year anniversary, at the same small independent theater in Boston where we had our very first date. He had arranged it all without me suspecting a thing. The movie we were watching suddenly cut off mid-scene, and on the screen appeared a custom-made trailer of our relationship, photographs of our trips, silly little video clips we'd taken on our phones, and snapshots of us laughing together in our tiny apartment. At the end, words filled the screen. "Emily Carter, will you marry me?" When the lights came up, Michael was already kneeling in the aisle, holding a simple but elegant diamond ring. The audience erupted into applause, but I barely heard them over the sound of my own heartbeat. Tears blurred my vision as I said yes, and Michael slipped the ring onto my finger with shaking hands. It was perfect not because it was grand or extravagant, but because it was us. Thoughtful, intimate, genuine. That night, as we celebrated with champagne on our couch, I felt like I had finally stepped into a life where I was valued and chosen, not overlooked. But even as the bubbles tickled my throat and Michael kissed my hand for the 100th time, a knot of anxiety formed in my stomach. I needed to call my parents. Deep down, I already knew what their reaction would be, but I still hoped naively that maybe, just maybe, they would surprise me. I dialed my mom the next morning, my voice shaking with nerves. "Mom, I have news. Michael proposed last night. We're engaged." There was a pause. Too long. When she finally spoke, her voice was flat. "Oh, that's nice. Congratulations." That was it. No excitement, no questions about the proposal, no gushing about the ring. Just a lifeless acknowledgement, followed by, "We'll need to know the date once you decide. By the way, Lily just landed the lead in her local theater production. We're so thrilled for her." Once again, my news was shoved aside to make space for Lily's spotlight. My chest ached, but I forced cheer into my voice, rambling about maybe doing a spring wedding, hoping to spark some enthusiasm. My mother only said, "That's quite soon. Well, let us know the details." Then she hung up. I stared at my phone, the joy of my engagement already dimmed by the one response I had been craving most. Michael saw the look on my face and pulled me close. "They'll come around," he said softly, but I could hear the doubt hiding in his voice. Despite the lukewarm reaction, Michael and I moved forward with our plans. We chose a historic venue in Cambridge, with tall windows and polished wooden floors. We wanted something intimate, 60 guests, people who truly mattered. I picked lilies and hydrangeas for the floral arrangements, my favorite flowers since childhood. We booked a family-owned Mediterranean restaurant to cater the reception, because their food carried warmth and heart, the exact feeling we wanted for our wedding. And we found a photographer whose portfolio captured joyful, candid moments instead of stiff poses. Every decision felt right, like building the wedding we always dreamed of. 4 months before the wedding, we sent out invitations. I slipped each one into envelopes carefully, my hand shaking as I addressed the ones to my parents and to Lily. I imagined them opening the envelope, smiling, maybe even feeling proud. Weeks passed with no response. I finally called my mom. "Did you get the invitation? The venue needs a final head count soon." "Yes, we got it," she said casually. "Your father and I have been meaning to call you about that. We'll try to make it, of course, but you know how busy things get. My throat tightened. It's my wedding day. I'd really like you all to be there. Of course, honey. We'll do our best. Each time I spoke to them after that, the conversation played out the same way. Vague promises, no real commitment, and certainly no offers to help with preparations. When I asked my father if he'd do the traditional father-daughter dance, he muttered, "I'll have to check my schedule," as if it were just another business meeting he could pencil in. Meanwhile, Michael's family threw themselves into helping us. His mother Linda called to ask about color schemes and seating arrangements. His father Robert insisted on contributing to the costs, even though we had planned to cover everything ourselves. His sister Olivia organized a bridal shower with extended family members, complete with games and decorations that made me feel like I had belonged to their family forever. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Michael's family treated my wedding like a milestone worth celebrating. My family treated it like an inconvenience, something to fit in between Lily's rehearsals and recitals. Through it all, Rachel, my best friend and maid of honor, was my anchor. She spent weekends with me browsing bridal boutiques, sipping lattes while I tried on dresses. She organized a shower with my closest friends in Boston, and she listened patiently during late-night calls when I cried about my parents' indifference. "They'll come," she assured me. "And even if they don't, I'll be right beside you the whole way." I clung to her words, even though a part of me feared otherwise. But deep down, a fragile, stubborn hope lingered. I told myself that surely, of all moments, my wedding would be the one time my family showed up for me. Surely they would step up, just once, and prove I mattered too. I had no idea that instead of showing up, they would deliver the most devastating betrayal yet. Because just as Michael and I finalized the last details and counted down the days, Lily made an announcement that would shatter every ounce of hope I had left and twist the knife of favoritism deeper than ever before. 2 weeks before my wedding, when everything was supposed to feel magical and full of anticipation, I experienced the kind of betrayal that still makes my chest tighten when I think about it. I was sitting at my desk during lunch, scrolling absent-mindedly through Instagram, when my thumb froze on a photo that nearly made my heart stop. It was Lily, my younger sister, grinning at the camera, her left hand lifted proudly to display a sparkling diamond ring. The caption read, "He asked, I said yes, future Mrs. Williams." I should have felt happy for her, but my stomach sank as I continued to read. The comment section was filled with congratulations, with hearts and clapping emojis flooding in from friends and family. And then I saw my mother's comment, "So happy for my beautiful baby girl. Can't wait to celebrate this weekend." This weekend. My mind raced. My wedding was this weekend. Surely she didn't mean that. Surely it was some mistake, a miscommunication, anything but what it looked like. My hands trembled as I dialed my mother's number. She answered on the second ring, her voice cheerful. "Mom," I said, my voice already shaking, "Lily's engaged?" "Oh, yes," she said, almost breathless with excitement. "It was so romantic. Ethan proposed at a vineyard upstate. We're just over the moon for her." My throat felt tight. "And what's this about a celebration this weekend?" There was a pause, and when my mother spoke again, her tone shifted to that falsely innocent voice I knew all too well. "Oh dear, did you see the post?" "Yes, Lily's having a little engagement party. Just family and close friends. Nothing too big." I could barely breathe. "Mom, that's my wedding day." "Is it? Oh, I thought your wedding was the following weekend," she said, as if genuinely confused. "Well, honey, these things happen. We've already put down deposits for the party. Would it be possible for you and Michael to reschedule your ceremony?" I was stunned into silence. Reschedule my wedding? After months of planning, deposits, guests flying in from out of town, for an engagement party that Lily had planned less than 2 weeks ago? My voice cracked when I finally answered, "No, Mom, we can't reschedule our wedding. It's all set. Everything is arranged. We have 60 guests coming, contracts signed. We can't." she sighed, as though I was the unreasonable one. Well, I suppose we'll have to figure something out. But you know how important this is for Lily. She's dreamed of this for so long. The rage and pain tangled inside me. And I haven't dreamed of my wedding? You RSVP'd yes. Dad is supposed to walk me down the aisle. How could you even ask me this? We'll try to make part of it, she said, like she was offering a compromise. Maybe we can split our time between the two events. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. Tears blurred my vision. How could they choose her again? How could they look me in the eye and tell me my wedding day wasn't worth as much as her last-minute engagement party? I called Rachel immediately, desperate for someone to tell me I wasn't crazy. Her outrage came through the line like a fire. That's insane, Emily. They can't expect you to reschedule your wedding for her engagement party. That's not even her wedding. It's just a party. You do nothing. You go ahead with your plans. If they choose her over you, that's on them. Michael was just as furious when I told him later. I saw the flash of anger in his eyes before he softened his voice for my sake. Emily, this is a choice they're making, and it's the wrong one, but it doesn't change the fact that we're getting married. That's what matters. Still, my heart ached with the possibility that none of my family would be there. The thought of standing in front of our guests with empty seats reserved for my parents and sister filled me with a grief I couldn't put into words. But as bad as that was, the final blow hadn't landed yet. The night before my wedding, Rachel texted me. So sorry, something urgent came up. Family emergency. I might be a little late tomorrow, but don't worry, I'll be there before the ceremony. I wanted to believe her, but something in her vagueness unsettled me. Rachel was never vague. I pushed the feeling aside, telling myself stress was making me paranoid. But later that night, scrolling through social media in a futile attempt to distract myself, I saw it. A photo Lily had just posted of herself at a boutique, trying on a sleek white dress for her engagement party. Underneath, a fresh comment from Rachel. You look stunning. Can't wait for tomorrow. My stomach twisted. I clicked on Rachel's profile and saw a story she had posted earlier that day, a short video of Lily laughing in a dressing room. It had been deleted, but not before the platform left its timestamp, posted 1 hour ago. My best friend, my maid of honor, the one person who promised she would stand beside me no matter what, was planning to attend Lily's party instead of my wedding. I called her immediately, my heart pounding, but the call went to voicemail. I texted her. I saw Lily's post. Are you going to her party instead of my wedding? The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, and then came her reply. I'm so sorry, Emily. Lily reached out and said it would mean the world if I came. I thought maybe I could do both, but the timing won't work. I should have told you sooner. I feel terrible. Terrible didn't begin to cover it. My chest felt like it was collapsing in on itself. The girl who had been my anchor through college, who had promised she would never let me stand alone, had chosen Lily too. Just like my parents. That night, I sat on the edge of my hotel bed, staring at the ring on my finger. Tomorrow I would marry Michael, the love of my life. But I would do it without my family, without my sister. Without the friend I thought I could count on. My heart shattered into pieces, and yet, beneath the devastation, a strange clarity began to form. Maybe I didn't need them. Maybe the people who truly loved me were already standing beside me, ready to carry me into the next chapter of my life. I clung to that thought as I tried to sleep, not knowing that the real storm, the revelation that would change everything, was still waiting for me, just hours away. The morning of my wedding should have been the happiest morning of my life, but instead I woke up with eyes swollen from crying, my chest hollow, and a gnawing ache that made it almost impossible to breathe. My family wasn't coming. My sister had stolen my best friend, and my maid of honor had abandoned me. I lay in that hotel bed staring at the ceiling, wondering how I was supposed to walk down an aisle when the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally had already chosen to be somewhere else. I was still in that daze when a knock rattled my door. For a moment, I thought it might be Michael breaking tradition, but when I opened it, There stood Allison Turner, my old college roommate, holding 2 cups of coffee and a paper bag of bagels. Her eyes widened when she saw my face, red and puffy. "Oh my God, Emily," she whispered, setting everything down and pulling me into a hug. I didn't even have the strength to protest. The tears started again, messy and uncontrollable, and I told her everything: the betrayal, the texts, the party. When I finished, she pulled back and looked me straight in the eyes. "You're not doing this alone. If you'll let me, I'll step in today. I'll be your maid of honor." I stared at her, stunned. "You'd do that?" "Of course," she said firmly. "That's what friends are for. Now drink this coffee, because we've got work to do." In that moment, something inside me shifted. I wasn't completely alone. I had someone willing to show up, and maybe that was enough. The rest of the morning was a blur of activity. The hairstylist and makeup artist arrived, and Allison kept me laughing with old college stories, distracting me from the ache in my chest. She fussed with my veil, made sure I ate something, and reminded me every 10 minutes that I looked beautiful even when I didn't feel it. When I finally stepped into my wedding dress, staring at myself in the mirror, I felt a flicker of what I'd always imagined this day would be like. Almost, but not quite. Just when I thought the weight of walking down the aisle without a father would crush me, another knock came at the door. This time, it was Robert, Michael's dad. He stood there in his tuxedo, a little nervous, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "Emily," he said gently, "I know this might not be my place, but Michael mentioned that your father might not be here today. I wanted to offer, I'd be honored to walk you down the aisle." The tears came again, hot and fast. "I would be honored," I whispered. His smile trembled as he extended his arm. "The honor's all mine. You've made my son happier than I've ever seen him. You're already family." When the ceremony began, I stood just behind the doors of the historic venue, my arm looped through Robert's dead eye. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The music started, and the doors opened. For a moment, the sight nearly undid me. On Michael's side, rows of smiling faces beamed at me, all of them clapping softly, standing as I entered. On my side, the front row was empty chairs, reserved for my parents and sister that would stay that way. But then my eyes found Michael at the altar. The way he looked at me, his face filled with awe and love, steadied me. The hollow ache in my chest eased just enough to let me breathe. Step by step, with Robert by my side, I walked toward my future. The ceremony itself was short but powerful. Michael and I had written our own vows. His voice shook as he promised to celebrate my victories as if they were his own, to stand beside me in every storm, to build a home where my worth was never in question. My hands trembled as I slipped the ring onto his finger, and when the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, the room erupted in applause. Afterward, as the music swelled, Michael took my hand and led me to the center of the floor for our first dance. At Last, by Etta James filled the room, and for those few minutes, swaying in his arms, the world melted away. It was just us. Just love. Then Robert stepped forward. "May I?" he asked softly, and the crowd clapped as he took my hand for the father-daughter dance. That was when I broke completely, tears streaming down my face as he whispered, "You're family now. That's what family does." The reception was beautiful, candles flickering on tables, laughter filling the air, friends hugging me tightly, Michael never leaving my side. On the surface, it looked perfect. But every time I caught sight of the empty seats reserved for my family, my heart twisted. No matter how hard I tried to focus on the joy, the absence pressed down on me like a weight I couldn't shake. Still, I reminded myself of what Naomi had once told me before she betrayed me. "Your wedding will be perfect because it's about you and Michael. Everything else is just details." I clung to those words like a lifeline, even as the night carried me closer to a revelation I wasn't prepared for. Because just when I thought I had survived the worst of the heartbreak, just when I convinced myself that I could endure their absence and still have a beautiful wedding, my phone buzzed in the hidden pocket of my dress. And what I saw on the screen would turn everything I thought I knew about my family upside down. The reception was alive with joy, a swirl of music, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. For the first time that day, I allowed myself to relax. I held Michael's hand, felt the warmth of his steady presence beside me, and told myself that this was all that mattered. Our guests cheered as we danced, toasted to our future, and celebrated our love. For a few precious hours, I let the empty seats at the front of the room blur into the background. Then the coordinator approached us, smiling brightly. "It's time for the cake," she announced, and the crowd gathered around as Michael and I moved toward the three-tier masterpiece decorated with lilies and hydrangeas to match my bouquet. We stood behind it, the knife poised in our hands, and the photographer circled, snapping away. "Ready?" Michael whispered, his eyes twinkling. I smiled back, my voice catching. "Ready." Together, we pressed the blade into the bottom tier. The room erupted in cheers and applause, cameras flashing, champagne glasses raised. For a moment, I felt like maybe I had finally outrun the shadow of my family's absence. Maybe this was the fresh start I had always dreamed of. And then, hidden in the pocket of my dress, my phone vibrated. It was subtle, a faint buzzing against my hip, but it jolted me. I'd told myself I wouldn't check my phone during the reception, that I'd focus on the joy of the moment. But something inside me urged me to look. I slipped it out quickly, angling it away from curious eyes. My heart stopped. 36 missed calls, all from my parents and even Lily, and one message from my mother: "We need to talk now." The air left my lungs. The room around me suddenly felt muffled, as though I were underwater. Michael noticed immediately. "Emily, what is it?" he whispered, concern shadowing his face. I showed him the screen, my hand trembling. He frowned, jaw tight. "They made their choice earlier. Whatever this is, it can wait. This is our night." Part of me wanted to agree, to shove the phone back into my dress and pretend it didn't exist. But another part of me, the part that had spent her whole life begging for scraps of my family's attention, wouldn't let it go. What if something had happened? What if someone was hurt? "I just need a minute," I said, my voice barely audible. Michael's expression softened, though his eyes still burned with frustration. "If you need to call them back, I understand. Just don't let them ruin today." Nodding, I slipped away from the crowd, my heart pounding, and found a quiet corner in the garden outside the venue. The night air was cool against my skin as I dialed my mother's number. She picked up on the first ring, her voice frantic. "Emily, thank God. We've been trying to reach you for hours." "I was getting married, Mom," I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my tone. "What's so urgent that you couldn't wait until tomorrow?" Her voice cracked. "It's Lily. The engagement party. It's ruined." Ethan called it off. I froze, my mind struggling to process. "What? Why?" "Because," she said, her voice breaking completely, "he found out the truth. He confronted her in the middle of the party, and she admitted it. Emily, she lied to us. About everything." A sick chill ran down my spine. "What do you mean, everything?" "She told us you had changed your wedding date, that you didn't want us there, that you only wanted Michael's family. She showed us texts from you saying you were done with us, that we weren't welcome." My knees buckled, and I sank onto a nearby bench. "Mom, I never said any of that. I called you, I begged you to come. I left voicemails. You ignored me." "I know," she whispered. "I know now. Patrick, Ethan, whatever his name is, he pushed her when she made a joke about finally being the center of attention. She broke down and admitted it. She created fake messages. She intercepted your invitation before we ever saw it. She deleted your real messages from our phones when we weren't looking." The world tilted. My sister hadn't just chosen her day over mine, she had actively sabotaged me, weaving a web of lies so elaborate that even my own parents had believed it. "Why?" My voice was hoarse, raw. "Why would she do that?" "She said she wanted all the attention. That she couldn't stand you being in the spotlight even for one day. My head spun, nausea clawing at my throat. My parents' voices blurred together now, my father cutting in, his voice heavy with shame. We should have questioned it. We should have called you directly. But she was so convincing, she even cried about how hurt she was, saying you had cut us out of your life. And part of us believed it, because we knew we had failed you before. We thought maybe this was punishment, that you didn't want us anymore. I pressed a hand to my mouth, fighting back tears. So you just accepted it? Without even asking me? Without even trying to believe in me? Silence. Then my mother's broken voice. We failed you, Emily. We failed you in every way. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know we see it now. We know what she did. The night air suddenly felt suffocating. My wedding day, the one moment I had hoped would finally prove I mattered, had been sabotaged from the inside by the person who should have been closest to me. My sister. And my parents had let it happen. Somewhere behind me, I heard footsteps. Michael's voice called softly, "Emily? You've been out here a while. What's going on?" I turned, tears streaming down my face, phone still clutched in my hand. The words caught in my throat, but I knew I had to tell him everything. Because the storm that had been brewing for years had finally broken wide open, and the fallout was only just beginning. By the time the reception wound down, my head was spinning not from champagne, but from the phone call with my parents. I had plastered on a smile, thanked guests, posed for pictures, all while my insides churned with anger, grief, and disbelief. When Michael and I finally left the venue under a shower of rose petals, my heart was pounding for reasons no one could see. The night wasn't over. My parents wanted to see me. After everything, they wanted to talk face to face. At 11:15, they walked into the hotel lobby. The sight of them nearly undid me. My mother looked haggard, her eyes swollen from crying. My father's shoulders were slumped, his usual air of authority stripped away. For the first time in my life, they looked small. "Emily," my mom whispered, stepping toward me with arms outstretched. But instinctively, I stepped back. Michael's hand tightened around mine. "Let's go somewhere private," he said firmly, his protective tone steadying me. We led them into a small meeting room off the lobby. The door clicked shut behind us, and suddenly the silence was unbearable. We stood there, the four of us, staring at each other like strangers. Finally, my dad spoke. His voice was low, raw. "We don't expect forgiveness. What we did believing Lily, missing your wedding, it's unforgivable. But we need you to hear us. We are so deeply sorry." The words hit me, but they didn't soothe me. I swallowed hard. Sorry doesn't change the fact that you weren't there, that you chose her lies over me, that you believed I would shut you out of the most important day of my life without even calling me to confirm. Tears streamed down my mother's face. "You're right. There's nothing we can say to justify it. We failed you. Not just today, but for years." I took a shaky breath, years of hurt rising in my throat. Why was it so easy for you to believe I didn't want you there? What kind of relationship do you think we have that made that believable? They exchanged a pained look. My father spoke again. "The truth is, we knew. We knew we hadn't been good parents to you. We knew we had favored Lily, overlooked your accomplishments, neglected you. When she told us you wanted nothing to do with us, part of us believed it because we thought maybe we deserved it. We thought it was punishment." Punishment. That word stung. "So instead of fighting for me, instead of trying to make amends, you just accepted it? You let her lies be more believable than my entire life?" My mother's voice cracked. "We were cowards. It was easier to believe her than to face the truth about what we'd done to you. And she's our daughter, too. We never imagined she would lie about something so serious." I shook my head, anger and sorrow swirling. "Where is she now? Why isn't she here apologizing?" "We don't know," my father admitted. "She left after Ethan broke off the engagement. She isn't answering our calls." The silence stretched heavy. My mother's sobs filled the space, but I felt detached, almost cold. I don't understand how she could do this. We've had our issues, but this? Forging texts? Stealing my invitation? Making sure you believed I didn't want you there? That's not jealousy, that's cruelty. She's always been jealous of you, my mom said softly. Your independence, your intelligence, the way people genuinely connect with you. We spoiled her, yes, but deep down, she envied what you had naturally. We created a monster, Emily. We're responsible. Michael finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. That might explain her feelings, but it doesn't excuse what she did. She deliberately sabotaged our wedding. That goes beyond sibling rivalry. My father nodded slowly. You're right, there's no excuse. And we enabled her by always giving in, by always excusing her behavior. I stared at them, really seeing them for the first time. Not as the untouchable figures of my childhood, but as flawed, guilt-ridden people. And despite everything, a part of me ached for what we could have been, for the family I had always longed for but never had. I can't forgive you tonight, I said finally, my voice steady. I don't know if I can ever forgive you for missing my wedding, but I'm willing to try to build something new if you're truly committed to change. Both of them nodded eagerly, desperation in their eyes. Anything, my mom whispered. That means acknowledging the patterns that got us here, I continued. It means therapy individually and as a family. It means real accountability, not just for today, but for years of neglect. We'll do it, my dad said quickly. Whatever it takes. And Lily, I added, my voice sharper now. She needs help too. What she did goes beyond jealousy. She needs therapy. Serious therapy. We know, my mom said through her tears. When we find her, getting her help will be our first priority. We talked for over an hour. It wasn't a reconciliation, not really. There were no magical hugs, no sudden healing of old wounds. But something cracked open that night, a door that had been shut for decades. For the first time, my parents admitted the truth not just about Lily, but about themselves. By the time Michael and I finally walked out of that room, I felt wrung out, emotionally drained, but also strangely lighter. The anger still burned, the hurt still cut deep, but now there was at least the possibility of change. Michael squeezed my hand as we headed back toward our hotel room. Are you okay? He asked gently. I thought carefully before answering. Not yet, but maybe I will be. I didn't know then how long the road ahead would be, or how many obstacles would still come. All I knew was that the confrontation had cracked the foundation of our family wide open, and what came next would either rebuild us or finally break us for good. 6 months passed after the wedding, and in some ways life looked picture perfect. Michael and I came back from our honeymoon in Santorini, with sunburned noses and 1,000 photos of turquoise seas and whitewashed rooftops. For 2 weeks we had escaped the storm of family betrayal, pretending it was just us against the world, but the moment we landed back in Boston, reality came flooding back. Healing wasn't a vacation, it was work, and it was waiting for me. True to their word, my parents had started therapy, individually at first, then together. They found a family therapist named Dr. Patterson, who specialized in estrangement and fractured parent-child relationships. At first I refused to join them. I wasn't ready. The pain of my wedding day still burned like an open wound, and the idea of sitting across from them in a therapy room made me feel sick. But eventually, after weeks of calls and gentle encouragement from Michael, I agreed. Every Thursday evening, I sat in a small beige office, arms crossed, trying to keep my voice from trembling as I listened to my parents admit things I never thought I'd hear. They confessed to the favoritism. They admitted to the neglect. They acknowledged the years of choosing Lily's needs and celebrations over mine. Healing isn't linear, Dr. Patterson reminded us often. And she was right. Some sessions ended with breakthroughs, tears, and apologies that felt genuine. Others ended with me storming out, shaking with anger at how casually they spoke of things that had cut me so deeply. Meanwhile, Lily had disappeared for 3 days after the disastrous engagement party. My parents told me she had finally called them from a hotel room, hysterical, begging them not to hate her. When they picked her up, she was pale and hollow-eyed, stripped of the confidence that had once made her seem untouchable. They convinced her to start therapy too. It took me 2 months before I could agree to see her. We met at a quiet cafe, halfway between our homes. I arrived early, hands sweating, rehearsing everything I wanted to say. When Lily walked in, she looked nothing like the sister I remembered. Her hair was unkempt, her shoulders slumped, and her usual bright energy was gone. She sat across from me, clutching her coffee cup like it was the only thing tethering her to the earth. "I don't know where to start," she said quietly, eyes fixed on the table. "Sorry feels so small compared to what I did." I let her words hang in the air before finally asking the question that had haunted me since my wedding. "Why, Lily? Why would you go to such lengths to ruin my day?" She bit her lip until it turned white, tears filling her eyes. "Because I was jealous. And not just of Michael or your wedding. I was jealous of you. My whole life I've performed dancing, playing violin, smiling for mom and dad's applause. But you were real. People loved you for who you were, not for what you could do. I wanted that. And when I couldn't have it, I wanted to destroy it." Her voice broke, and for the first time, I saw her stripped of the golden child glow that had defined her for so long. She was just a girl, damaged and desperate. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she added quickly. "I don't deserve it. I just want you to know I understand now, and I'm working on myself so I never do anything like that again." I sat there, torn between fury and pity. Part of me wanted to scream, to throw every memory of neglect and betrayal in her face. But another part of me saw how broken she looked, how therapy had cracked her open. I didn't forgive her that day, but I agreed to keep the conversation going. While Lily stumbled through her first steps toward change, my parents slowly began to prove themselves. My mother called me not to gush about Lily's latest performance, but to ask about my research project or the conference I was presenting at. My father sent me articles about biomedical advancements and even asked questions that showed he'd actually read them. They weren't perfect, but they were trying, and for the first time in my life I felt seen by them. Rachel, on the other hand, was a different story. When she discovered the truth that Lily had forged texts and manipulated her, she was devastated. She sent flowers, cards, long emails, begging me to talk. For weeks, I ignored them. Her betrayal still cut too deep. How could she have believed Lily over me, the friend she'd lived with for years? Eventually, I agreed to a phone call. Her voice was thick with regret. "I should have called you directly. I should have known better. We've been friends too long for me to fall for something like that. I have no excuse." She begged for another chance, promising she'd spend however long it took to rebuild my trust. Rebuilding was harder than building the first time, but slowly, I allowed small cracks of grace. We started with short texts, then monthly coffees. The closeness we once had was gone, but we were at least walking the long road back towards something new. The most surprising bond came from Allison, the woman who had stepped in at the last minute and saved my wedding day from collapsing. After that day, we kept in touch, at first casually, then regularly. Lunches turned into movie nights, and soon she became a permanent fixture in Michael's and my life. In many ways, she became the friend Rachel had once been, filling a space I hadn't even realized was still empty. Healing, I learned, wasn't about pretending nothing had happened. It was about sitting in the mess, acknowledging the damage, and still choosing to move forward. Some days I felt hopeful, even grateful. Other days I still cried, replaying the empty seats at my wedding. But step by step, piece by piece, something resembling family began to form again. And then, one evening, nearly a year after the wedding, Michael clinked his glass at a small dinner party and announced that we were expecting our first child. The table erupted in joy. My parents cried. Lily hugged me tightly, whispering, "You're going to be an amazing mother." For the first time in my life, the love in that room felt genuine. But even as I smiled and placed a hand on my stomach, I knew the work wasn't done. A baby was coming, and with it, a new chance to finally break the cycle that had nearly destroyed me. What none of us realized was that the true test of everything we had been building, trust, forgiveness, boundaries, was still waiting just around the corner. As I sit here now, months after the chaos of that wedding day, my life looks so different than the girl who once begged her parents to notice her. Michael and I have settled into our marriage with a rhythm that feels steady and safe. My parents are still in therapy, still learning how to show up in ways they never did when I was a child. Lily is working through her own demons, finally admitting to the damage she caused, and trying, piece by piece, to rebuild a relationship with me. And Rachel and I, though the trust isn't what it once was, are slowly finding a new kind of friendship. But the real shift hasn't been in them, it's been in me. For so long, I measured my worth by the love I didn't receive, by the empty chairs at graduations, birthdays, and yes, even my wedding. I thought if I worked hard enough, achieved enough, proved myself enough, then maybe they would finally choose me. What I've learned is that healing doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from choosing yourself, even when no one else does. Forgiveness, too, has taken on a new meaning for me. It isn't about excusing the hurt or erasing the past. It's about acknowledging what happened, setting boundaries to protect yourself, and deciding whether rebuilding is truly possible. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, and both answers can be okay. Most of all, I've learned that family isn't always about blood. It's about the people who show up, who love you without conditions, who stand beside you when life gets messy. On my wedding day, those people weren't the ones I was born to. They were Michael, his family, Allison, and the friends who chose to be there. That realization broke something in me, but it also freed me. Now, as Michael and I prepare to welcome our first child, I carry these lessons with me. I am determined to break the cycle of neglect and favoritism that defined my past. My child will never wonder if they are enough. They will grow up knowing that their worth isn't conditional, that their voice matters, and that their victories, big or small, are worth celebrating. To anyone listening who has felt forgotten, overshadowed, or betrayed by the very people who were supposed to love you most, please know this: you are not defined by their inability to see you. You are enough, exactly as you are. You deserve love, respect, and joy. And sometimes the greatest act of courage is to build your own family from the people who choose you, rather than the ones who don't. If this story resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your own experiences in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And let me leave you with this question. If you had the chance to rebuild a broken relationship, would you take it? Or would you walk away to protect your peace?